Are you sick and tired of attracting low-paying clients to your creative business? Well, having coached hundreds of freelancers and agency owners, I've noticed that there are 3 common pricing mistakes that prevent them from charging what they're worth and attracting big budget clients. In this video, I'll show you what those 3 mistakes are, how to avoid them, and at the end, I'll even share a quick way to double or even triple your prices overnight. Let's look at pricing mistake number 1. If you've ever been asked to reduce the number of days or hours that you work, then you are definitely making this first pricing mistake. This is a very, very common request from clients when we price in this particular way. So if you've ever had that happen to you, the chances are you are making this mistake. The second thing that might have happened to you is you might have had this awkward conversation at the end of a project or even during a project where that client has used the amount of required amends, or there seems to be some kind of scope creep, and you tell them that if they want these extra things, then it's going to cost them more money. This is a very classic symptom of this first pricing mistake. The third thing that you may have experienced as a result of this pricing mistake is having clients pressure you to do things faster. So whether that's like a deadline approaching or whether you just feel like you're kind of under pressure to do things quickly, that is typically a symptom of this first pricing mistake. The fourth thing is micromanaging clients. There's nothing worse than this. I remember the feeling when I ran my own agency of clients constantly breathing down my neck, asking what I was working on in that day, asking where we were with particular project amends. Often when I was contracting, clients would want me to come into the office so that I could work near them or they could kind of check on what I was doing. This is a very typical symptom of this first pricing mistake. And then finally, if you feel like your time isn't valued appropriately, I hear this often from creatives. It's like, people just don't seem to value my time. That can show up in lots of different ways. It can show up where people are requesting meetings very often, or they're trying to negotiate. It can show up in a variety of different ways, but the feeling ultimately for you is that your time isn't valued appropriately. So what are all of these symptoms of? What is pricing mistake number 1? Pricing mistake number 1 is hourly billing. Charging by the hour or charging by the day is one of the main reasons that we attract low value clients and that we don't get paid what we deserve. Now, you've probably seen Chris talk about this a lot on this channel. In fact, I think it's one of his most popular videos. The reason this is such a negative way to run a business is because essentially the faster you work, the less you get paid. So the better you get at your skill and the faster you become at this thing, the less money you earn. The other thing I used to find really frustrating when I billed by the hour was I always felt like there was a lot of work that I was doing which was kind of outside of billable hours. It was things that were very difficult to charge the client for. This could be like project management, it could be research, something where if you charge by the hour or charge by the day and you start listing these items, it's often very difficult for a client to swallow those things and agree to pay for them. The third thing is there is just a limited amount of hours in a day or a week. So there is this kind of glass ceiling, and the reason this happens is because the hours aren't quantifiable. And what I mean by that is the perception of value for an hour of somebody's time isn't really quantifiable. It's kind of based on their own metrics, like how much is an hour of this person's time worth? Well, that's very hard to measure, right? Maybe it's dependent on how good they are, how successful they are, or whatever. It's usually quantified internally by that person in terms of what they believe that hour of time is worth, opposed to the other way to price, which I'm going to tell you shortly. So let's look at mistake number 2. So ask yourself if you've experienced any of these symptoms. So the first one is it feels like a race to the bottom. These are words that creatives often tell me. So they're constantly competing on price. Like prospects come to them and say, oh, all sounds great, but so-and-so can do it cheaper. And they feel like their price is the only thing that they can adjust. The second thing is they have nightmare clients. Now, most of us know what nightmare clients are like. We've all had them, myself included. But some of the typical things that we experience from nightmare clients when it comes to this specific pricing strategy is wanting a lot more than we feel they've paid for. That's something I hear a lot. So for example, I've got a client at the moment who works in branding, and she delivered this brand project for somebody, and this person said that's a lot of money, and then started trying to add things on top, said that they weren't happy with this, weren't happy with that. And for that client, that person who delivered the branding, it felt like a very low budget for what they delivered. So this is a really typical symptom where there's almost like a mismatch of expectations, and you have these nightmare clients that are just stressful to work with, that seem to want way more than you've agreed to deliver. The third thing is that you feel you can't do your best creative work, right? Imagine what you would do for your clients if your project's budget had an extra zero on the end. What would be possible? What else would you do differently? Who else would you bring in? So what I hear when people are making this mistake is they just really feel like they're not doing their best creative work. They're not doing everything that they know they could do for that client. And then the final thing is they're constantly haggling. So they constantly feel like they're being beaten down on price. They constantly want to know, how do I negotiate this? How do I build better negotiation skills? So what are we talking about here? Well, the second big pricing mistake is undercharging. Now, I know that sounds simple, but I think most people know when they're doing it. They're quoting a lower fee because they're hoping that if they are cheaper or within budget for that client, they will have a better chance of winning that project. And that is a fundamental mistake that a lot of people make. They undercharge because they think it's going to help them to win that project. And in my experience, the opposite is actually true. And what I mean by that is it attracts the wrong kind of clients. So undercharging and chronically undercharging, some of the people that I've worked with, one of the reasons we've been able to get such big uplifts with them is because they were chronically undercharging when they first came to us. And in my experience, this is like 80% of the creative industries are chronically undercharging. This is a great one that I love because when I met Will and when we first started working together, he was doing kind of £1,500 logos. That's kind of the price range he was in, 1,500 to 2,000. By the time we finished working together, he was doing 15K plus branding projects, but he wasn't doing 10 times the work. And I really want to stress this. The strategy I'm sharing with you isn't just about delivering way more value. It's also not about just adding an extra zero on the end of what you do. Like, I'm assuming if you're watching this video, you're already good at what you do and you're already delivering value for clients, but there's a difference between reality, as in how good you are at what you do, and perception, how that client perceives those things. And the reason for that mismatch of reality and perception are these mistakes that I am talking about right now. So undercharging is a chronic one, and this is the result of that. Okay, so when you get this right, when you flip this round, and when you do the thing that I'm about to share with you, you can 10x in this case the price of your work without 10x the workload. So let's look at the final pricing mistake, and then I will get to the strategy that will actually allow you to overcome these and really charge what you're worth. So if you are making this final pricing mistake, then you will attract clients that constantly expect discounts. This one is super common. Not only do they expect discounts, but the people who they refer you to also want a discount. And so you're kind of trapped in this cycle. And then second to last, you feel like you're giving away too much. So you feel like you've agreed to something, but maybe now you're regretting agreeing to that thing. And then finally, feeling like you always have to give discounts. It's almost like you're stuck on this roller coaster or this cycle of giving people discounts. So what is the pricing mistake? What am I talking about? Well, you might have guessed it already. It may be too obvious, but it's discounts. These things are created by giving discounts in the first place. It's the act of discounting your services that actually creates all of these symptoms. And I know that sounds simple, but I also see way too many people doing it. So I can tell you what to do instead, but this is what discounts create. As I said, we're trapped in this cycle. The other thing is when you give a discount, clients don't value you as much, because essentially what you're saying is, I told you it was this price, but really I'm actually happy to accept this price. So really this is what it's worth, because something is worth what someone is willing to pay for it. That's how much it's worth. And so if you allow them to pay that for it, in their mind, that is what it's worth, right? There's no room for amends. When you discount, and then it comes back to our previous point of undercharging, it's like you charge less than you want, and then you might even add a discount on top of that. And by the way, the difference between discounting and undercharging is when you set your price there because that's what you think is going to win you the project. So you don't have to discount to undercharge. Discounting is literally saying to a client, here's how much it would be. And they say, oh, that's a bit out of our budget. And then you lower the price. So discounting is where the client is aware that you are lowering the price based on their budget or based on the fact you think that's going to help you win the project. Undercharging is just, you can do that without the client even knowing, right? So that's the difference between these two. So discounting creates that, and it really attracts a certain type of client. It attracts a type of client who is looking for discounts. They are bargain hunters, these people, okay? And so you will attract these people into your experience. You will attract these people to your agency. So do not discount. Last little case study I'll show you. When we stopped Alessandro from discounting and we showed him the strategy I'm about to share with you, he was able to take a client budget from 12K to 25K in one conversation. And I just love some of these case studies. I love when clients share this with us because it gives me so much fulfillment, because I knew that he should have been charging 25K in the first place. So this is what it can lead to. And I just want to show you that this isn't just like a one-off. I want to share some of the messages that we get in our community and some of the things that our clients share with us when they start doing this. This is Will, who I just used as an example, and this is another win that he was sharing. But I just want to point out some things from here. It's like their budget went from, hey, we can only afford 5K max, to actually we can afford 10K. So how are they doing that? Well, I'll tell you in a minute. And the great thing here is we didn't really need to push them on it, right? So this is a really, really great strategy because it's not about salesy. It's not about being a hard sell or doing anything that is going to be uncomfortable for you. So that's really important. Quick one from Matt. You know, we work with clients that have a variety of ranges of project sizes. Matt's on typically on the higher end. So he won a contract for £500,000 over 12 months. And the cool thing about the way he implemented this is they got 2 months of that revenue up front. So they got a chunk of that money up front. Other people like Cameron booked a 10K client. But the thing I love about this is one of the advantages of the strategy that I'm going to share with you in a sec, is that she was able to use some of the things like these storytelling techniques and branding that she'd been studying, but she hadn't been able to use it because clients just didn't want to pay for it. They didn't see the value in it, right? But when she framed things in the new way, then she was able to do that and actually get paid for some of the things that she really wanted to do. So these are just some examples of other advantages of the strategy that I'm going to share with you, which helps you to avoid these pricing mistakes. So let's talk a little bit about the fix. What do we do to flip this on its head so we're not making these pricing mistakes? We're attracting the kind of clients we really want to attract. We're charging what we're worth, and we're getting the kind of budgets that we really want to get. So for this strategy to work, there are a couple of things that we really need in place. The first thing is the who, right? You can see that I majored in art. Who do we actually want to work with? Who do we actually want to target? And unfortunately, it's not enough just to say small businesses. or business owners or brands. It's just a bit too vague. We need to really zero in on who is our ideal client, who is that person that we really want to work with, that we really care about, that's going to pay us well, and that we're going to be able to get a great result for. If we don't know this, the strategy that I'm going to share becomes harder and harder to implement. So the first thing is who do we want to help? The second thing is we need to know, where are they now, right? So where is the now? And I've done this in red because the thing about the now that we want to get really clear on is what's the pain or what's the frustration or what's the challenge that they are currently facing. And we need to get really clear on this. Not, oh, they don't have a great website, or their branding is off, or they don't use video well. That's not the thing that's actually going on. The important part of identifying the pain, the frustration, where they are right now, is it must be languaged in their terms. So it must be something that when you say that, they identify with it. And the question that's coming to your mind right now is, how do we find that out? The answer to that is through conversations. Go and speak to those people, go and research. If you have to, look on Facebook groups, ask friends, like whatever you have to do to find out that information. It should be something they're saying rather than something that you see. Really important. So we want to know where they are now, what's their pain. Then we really want to get clear on where they want to be, the future, no pun intended. What are they trying to get to? And so the pain is the pleasure or the desire, like the desired state. Now, this is kind of business 101, but it really is important before we look at this next piece of the strategy, which is the fix to all of these pricing pieces. If you don't get this right, the strategy I'm going to share will not work for you and for your business. Okay. So we need to establish this. Who do you want to help, or who are you looking to help? Where are they now? What are they frustrated with? What annoys them? Where do they want to be? What is their desired state? So the concept is that we first want to focus on the outcome, the desire, the future state. Where do they want to be? That's the first thing we're really going to think about, and we're really going to get clear on. Once we are clear on that, we want to think about how we can get them as close as possible to that outcome. And this is what I talk about with your process, or unpacking your intellectual property. How do you actually get your clients from where they are now to where they are trying to get to? What is the process? And one of the best questions that I ask when clients are trying to figure this out is, if you only got paid when you delivered that outcome for your clients, what are all of the things that you would need to do to feel confident that you were going to get paid? And that question allows us to take a little bit of responsibility for that outcome. It allows us to think, like, what are all the things that we would need in place, both from their end and from our end, in order to get them as close as possible to that outcome. Now, I know that we can never guarantee anything. We can never guarantee an outcome, but we can get really good at getting people as close as possible, or getting people to that outcome consistently. And that's all we really want to do as creative service providers. We want to take the focus off of ourselves and what we offer, branding, design, illustration, whatever it is, and put it onto the client and what they want. So how do we get them there? The second part is then how we present that process. And this is where packages come in. So I really want you to think about, instead of selling a service, we're selling a product. So we're selling an outcome. This is an example. I went through and asked some of my clients if I could use their packages as an example, but unfortunately, due to confidentiality, I couldn't do that. Here's an example of something I just pulled off online. And this really shows how you could package that process. And this is kind of different tiers depending on what the outcome is and what that person wants to achieve. So these things are really based on outcomes. Like, what are you trying to get, rather than what are we doing in terms of hours or manpower or whatever else. And so packaging our services in this way is one of the most powerful ways to attract high value clients that will pay you what you want and more importantly, allow you to showcase and demonstrate how you get those outcomes for people. So once we've done that, then we can really start thinking about what do we want to charge for this? And we want to think about that in the context of the outcome that we're getting for that client. So the big idea here is that clients are really buying a result. And the better we get as creatives at delivering that result, the more money we can charge and the bigger the budgets clients will have. And I learned from Daniel Priestley early on that if you want to charge a lot of money, you have to solve a big problem. So the bigger the problem, the bigger the transformation from A to B, the more money you will be able to charge for that. So think about the kind of clients that really have decent sized problems. They have some of the things in place that they need in order for you to help them. And you get excited about solving that problem. And you know that you have the ability and the skill to solve that problem. And then package that up, present that in a way that is based on the outcome that they're getting, not on the process that you do internally. Like they don't care about the web design, the illustration, the animation. They care about what that can potentially do for them. So I said at the beginning that I would give fixes for these specific mistakes, and I'm a man that is true to my word. So just to summarize, instead of hourly billing, we want to bill based on value, okay? What is it worth to the client, not how much time are we spending on it? And if you don't know that, then you need to have more conversations and you need to ask better questions. Rather than undercharging, we want to price accordingly to the outcome, right? So rather than just saying, oh, I think this is what it is under budget, we want to price to the outcome. And this is one of the best ways to handle that objection. This is a lot of money or this is too expensive is around this, because if you are anchored to the outcome and what that is worth, the value that is for the client, then it's a really simple question back to that person. It's like, I hear you, I understand this feels like a lot of money to you. I'm curious, a lot of money compared to what, right? And we want to make sure we're comparing it to the outcome, not to what they think an hour of your time is worth or what Joe down the road charges for his services, right? Expensive compared to what? So we want to anchor this on the outcome. So instead of undercharging, we want to price for the outcome. And then instead of giving discounts, it would have made more sense if I did these in red and these in green, but hindsight is a wonderful thing. Instead of giving discounts, we want to give bonuses. So instead of taking things away, add things on. Think about something that is easy for you to deliver that wouldn't cause too much pain or that wouldn't take too much time or additional budget, but that would add some value for the client, right? What's a nice little bonus that you could throw in that is really nice for the client, but doesn't really cost you much? So for example, one of our clients used a strategy day. As a bonus, they threw in a strategy day where they just did a half day over Zoom. It was half a day of their time, not a crazy amount. And it gave the client loads and loads of value because they got really clear on their mission, on their vision, on their goals. Now that might be part of your process already, but there's nothing to stop you throwing that in as a bonus, right? So give bonuses, not discounts. So they are the three most common pricing mistakes that I see that prevent agency owners, freelancers, creative business owners from really charging what they're worth and attracting big budget clients. I'd love to know in the comments, which one of these are you making? Maybe it's all three. So one final thing I want to leave you with is this idea that I've discovered recently. I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on courses, coaches, seminars. Some were amazing, some doubled, tripled my business, some didn't work at all. And I've realized that if you want to take these insights that I'm sharing with you in this video and turn them into income, there are three things that you need, that you must have. The first one is the strategy, and I've just given you that, right? So you've got that, you can check that box. The other two things that most people don't get is they don't get support. and they don't get support from the right people, either people that have been there and done that before, or people that are very good at guiding them through that strategy. So maybe there's a part of the strategy you didn't quite understand, or maybe you've tried part of this already and it didn't quite work for you. There's probably some nuances that are specific to your situation that you just need some support or some guidance on. So the second thing you really need to get is some support from somebody who understands the strategy. And the third thing is the system, and this is crucial. Most people don't have the systems to actually track and implement these processes. So as an example, in relation to what we just did, most people don't know what their average project value is. They haven't been measuring that. They haven't had a system that tells them that. So when we package their services, when we do all the things that I've just shared with you, and then we say, well, what's your average project value now? They don't have anything to compare it to. Okay, so they don't have the system to track the progress, to know what's working, what's not working. Maybe they present the offer and packages to people, but some people say no, but they don't know how many people have said no. So they're not tracking the percentage of sales that they're making. So we really need to make sure that we have the systems in place to be able to track and implement the strategy. If you'd like some help with this, I currently do have 3 coaching spaces left for agencies or freelancers doing 10K and above that want to double or triple or even maybe 10X their prices and attract higher value clients. I will put a link in the description below if you would like to apply for one of those spaces. If you got value from this video, please let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel already. If you're not subscribed, it is one of the best channels out there for creative business advice. My name is Matt Essam. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you got some value.